US President has said that the United States of America has lost India and Russia to the deepest and darkest China, sharing his thoughts on his Truth Social platform. Trump's post was accompanied by a picture of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Trump further said in a sarcastic tone that he wished for a prosperous future of the three nations. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that any Western troops deployed to Ukraine would be considered legitimate targets by Moscow. Putin's warning comes after French President Emmanuel Macron said 26 countries had pledged to provide post-war security guarantees to Ukraine. Thailand's parliament has chosen business tycoon Anutin Charnvirakul as the country's prime minister, the third in 2 years after yet another leader was removed from office for ethical violations over her handling of the border dispute with Cambodia. Portuguese police have confirmed that 11 of the 16 people killed in the Lisbon funicular cable crash were foreign nationals. Among those who died in the crash include 5 Portuguese, 2 South Koreans, 3 British, 1 Swiss, 1 American, 2 Canadian, 1 Ukrainian and 1 French national. China says it strongly opposes any move to impose economic pressure after US President Donald Trump urged Europe to target Beijing over the war in Ukraine. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson of China warned against dragging China into the matter. UK Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner has resigned as Deputy Prime Minister, Housing Minister and Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. She expressed regret for not seeking additional specialist tax advice. She had to resign following underpayment of property tax. Hamas has released a video showing 2 hostages being driven through Gaza City. The video shows damaged buildings and the hostages, Guy Gilboa Dalal and Alan O'Hell, reuniting inside the vehicle. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says United States will blow up foreign crime groups if necessary, as he announces Ecuador's Los Lobos and Los Coneros will be labeled terrorist organizations. This warning comes days after a U.S. strike killed 11 people in a Venezuelan vessel in the Caribbean, while 2 Venezuelan aircraft later flew close to a U.S. naval ship. Right, the big story of the hour, the U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has confirmed that President Trump's trade deals will remain in place despite the ongoing legal challenges to his tariffs. In an interview, Lutnick emphasized that key agreements, including those with Japan and Europe, will hold firm. He added that the tariffs related to autos, pharmaceuticals and semiconductors are here to stay. White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett also assured that the U.S. economy is well prepared to handle these trade measures. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer announced that Democrats will force votes in the coming weeks to reverse import tariffs imposed under President Trump's administration. Schumer cited jobs report which showed slow job growth and a rise in unemployment as a key reason for the push. I have with me Peter Cardillo. He's the chief market economist at Spartan Capital Securities. He's joining me from New York. Thank you very much, Peter. And what's your assessment of how things are going to pan out domestically for the American economy? There have been reduction in tariffs for the auto imports from Japan from 27.5% to 15%. The executive order was signed yesterday. South Korea continues to hope that the auto tariffs on its auto manufacturing companies are going to reduce to 15%. But how resilient is the American market if the supply for the auto parts from South Korea and Japan and other countries is going to be restricted?
Well, I think, if you look at some of the latest macro indicators, especially the one we got this morning, the labor market, obviously they were soft, and some of the other macro indicators have been indicating a softer economy, an economy that's losing terrain at this time. And that's, due to the uncertainties over tariffs. Now, of course, if these restrictions last, everyone is going to suffer from it, not only the United States, but our trading partners as well, at least those who have yet to make a deal with the White House. So, right now, I think this rift that we've seen between Russia, India, and China, I think eventually there will be some dialogue, and I think eventually trade deals will be worked out. That doesn't mean that the harsh words and harsh stand that the White House has taken, and vice versa, by the way, that will not continue in the intermediate future. I think that will, but eventually it will lead to some sort of an agreement.
Right. What do you make of U.S. President Donald Trump's very recent comment? It is interesting in the way he has projected America's relations with Russia, China, and India. He's gone on and said that it's unfortunate that America has lost Russia and India to the darkest China. How do you view this comment, and what is the sentiment behind making such a strong remark?
I think it's a wake-up call for India, Russia, and possibly China as well, in the sense that the president seems to want to be unfazed of what happened, but yet talks about it and hints towards economic decay for our trading partners and as well as ours. And so I think it's another method, another way of getting that message across that eventually a deal will be reached.
Right. Peter, stay on with me. There's more information with regards to India-US trade relationship. The White House economic advisor Hassett has also commented on trade with India. Hassett stated that he is disappointed that India continues to help fund Russia's war in Ukraine. This comes as U.S. President Donald Trump's additional 25% tariffs on India came into effect last week. Peter, I would like to understand from you, do you think this is a pretext by the American administration to impose 25% additional tariffs? The fact that it accuses India of fueling the war in Ukraine, and quite the caustic commentary coming in from Trump's aides in the past few days and weeks. And also up until now, there was an additional 90-day reprieve that had been provided to China over the tariff war that was being played out between China and United States of America. But here on, do you think the Trump administration can sustain a tariff war against China?
Well, I think if you look at it from this perspective, these harsh statements and words that are coming out of the White House and many of the White House aides, I think is indicative to the fact that it shows a unity between the White House aides and the president. And so they're getting the message across to our trading partners. And again, it goes back to what I said a few moments ago, tactics or threats that tariffs could rise substantially above 50, 75%. It could happen, but it won't last for long. I think it would be an incentive for our trading partners who's ever imposed with those types of tariffs to begin to talk and have dialogue that eventually will reach to levels that perhaps the trading partners and we can live with. So I think it's again, it revolves around a tactic that's being used, and it may not immediately work, but eventually I think it will, because no one wants to see their economies being wrecked. And if these tariffs stay the way they are, you can rest assured that the Indian economy and the Russian economy will suffer.
Right. It's also interesting to note because, in the last 24 hours, the US president has also appealed to European countries to put economic pressures on China for China's support to Russia in the Ukraine war. But notwithstanding that, Europe continues to have trade deals with India, with China, and it doesn't seem like Europe is in the mood to put sanctions or impose punitive tariffs on either of the countries. So how do you think Europe and United States can be in sync when it comes to putting economic pressures or using economics as a tool to the means to an end, to end the war and reduce the financial capabilities that Russia has at this point of time, so as to force it to end the war?
Yeah, of course. In fact, White House has said that India is helping to support the war by doing business with the Russians. To a certain degree, that's a true statement. But sanctions work and they don't work. When you have a lot of sanctions imposed, and we've seen this with Russia, somehow or another, they manage to bypass these sanctions. But tariffs is a different story. Tariffs you can't bypass if you want to do trade with a particular company, with a particular country. And so, again, it's a question of bringing everyone to the table. Will Trump succeed? Possibly. He may not succeed. But again, our trading partners need us as we need them.
Right. Peter, thank you very much for sharing your views on this subject. I'll shift my focus where the Russian President Vladimir Putin has now questioned the need for foreign military presence in Ukraine, suggesting that such forces would be unnecessary if long-term peace decisions are made. This comes as 24 countries led by France and Britain have committed to forming a reassurance force to patrol any future peace agreement covering land, sea and air. The pledge follows Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, which has left the region in conflict.
А если будут достигнуты решения, которые приведут к миру, к долгосрочному миру, то тогда я просто не вижу никакого смысла в их нахождении на территории Украины. Вот если эти договоренности будут достигнуты, никто, пусть не сомневается, что Россия их будет исполнять в полном объеме. И мы будем уважать те гарантии безопасности, которые, конечно, должны быть выработаны и для России, и для Украины. И повторю еще раз, безусловно, Россия будет договоренности исполнять. Но во всяком случае с нами вот на серьезном уровне пока это никто не обсуждал. Это все. Руководство киевского режима, так мягко говоря, нелестно о нас отзывалось и исключало всякие возможности прямых контактов. Сейчас мы видим, они об этих контактах просят. Во всяком случае предлагают. Что смысла большого не вижу. Почему? Потому что договориться будет с украинской стороной практически невозможно по ключевым вопросам. Даже если будет политическая воля, в чем я сомневаюсь, есть юридико-технические трудности.
The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with European Council President Antonio Costa today to discuss next steps in Ukraine's path towards EU membership. Zelensky thanked the EU for its support and security guarantees, but expressed frustration over delays in his country's membership bid. He also pointed out that for the first time, Russia seems to have accepted Ukraine's EU ambitions. But Zelensky criticized the positions of some European countries, especially Hungary, as truly strange. There's no audio to this.
Нарешті ми чуємо сигнали з Росії, що вони вже сприймають членство України в Євросоюзі. Шкода, що вони сприймають реальність з такою затримкою. Ще з 2013 року Росія йшла до цієї простої думки. Але зараз це треба почути і деяким іншим великим друзям Росії в Європі. Якщо вже навіть Путін не заперечує, то позиції деяких країн, особливо Угорщини щодо кластерів в перемовинах, виглядають дійсно.
The European Union has said that it would welcome US President Donald Trump's support for its plan to end imports of Russian oil and gas by 2028. The EU Energy Commissioner Dan Jorgensen told the media that Washington backing Europe's energy strategy would be significant even as diplomatic efforts to end the war in Ukraine continue. Europe has already reduced its reliance on Russian gas from 45% to about 13% since the start of the conflict.
Meeting with Secretary Wright next week in Brussels. This will be the first time that him and I meet after the deal was made. And I look forward to an exchange of opinions there. I have a very good relationship to Secretary Wright, and I'm sure that we will be able to plan what to do next to make sure that this deal is then actually also implemented. It's clear that our role is to facilitate.
China has rejected calls for economic pressure from American President Donald Trump over the war in Ukraine, saying it strongly opposes such measures. Trump, speaking via video conference with European leaders in Paris yesterday, urged Europe to press China and stop buying Russian oil, which he said funds the war. China maintains it is neutral in the conflict, calling for an end to fighting while accusing the West of prolonging the war by arming Ukraine.
坚决反对动辄拿中国说事儿，坚决反对对中方施加所谓经济压力。
Thailand has a new prime minister, with the parliament electing Anutin Charnvirakul on Friday. His election follows the removal of the former prime minister Pantongtarn Shinawatra by the court last week, which had thrown the country into chaos and political deadlock. Anutin secured victory through a deal with the Progressive Opposition People's Party, the largest force in parliament. He promised to hold a referendum on amending the constitution and to call an election within 4 months. Many Thais see this rise as a moment for change, with residents saying they hope he can deliver stability after a turbulent political period.
สมควรอย่างมากเห็นสมควรว่าควรจะเปลี่ยนแปลงสักทีแค่4 เดือนคิดว่าคงทำอะไรได้ในการบริหารในหลักการของบ้านเมือง
มันมีอะไรที่เปลี่ยนแปลงมั่งก็ดีไม่งั้นก็คนเก่าเปลี่ยนกันเป็นครอบครัวเดียวอย่างกับการเมืองนี่เป็นของครอบครัวทั้งประเทศนะครับมันต้องมีการเปลี่ยนแปลงมีอะไรที่ดีๆขึ้นนะครับโดยเฉพาะควรจะมีอะไรใหม่ๆขึ้นมาบ้างไม่ใช่อะไรก็คนเดิมไม่เป็นก็ลูกหลานญาติพี่น้องนะครับก็สมควรจะมีใหม่บ้าง
ก็มองดูก็ลองให้เขาเป็นไปก่อนก็ดูเขาไปก่อนลูกยังไงก็ว่ากันเนาะเพราะยังย้ายไม่ค่อยรู้หรอกใครเป็นย้ายก็ว่าดีหมดแหละแต่ก็แล้วแต่แหละ
Portuguese authorities are being urged to review the technology used in Lisbon's funicular after a deadly crash killed at least 16 people. The accident happened when the traction cable snapped, making the braking redundancy system fail as one car left the track and hit a building near its twin. The president of the Order of the Engineers of Portugal stated,
or the cable was used for more than 100 years, so it's broken, and there are too many things like that, too many equipments like that in the world, not even in Portugal, that not broken, that it's not, it was a rupture, it's not supposed to have that. And the redundant systems, the safety systems behind that one doesn't work because it was just for to stop that as a brake. Authorities must do something more in this insurance for this kind of funiculars, because the technology, the engineering and the knowledge is much more than this last century, and because that we can improve better than it all things. Normally this kind of equipment, this kind of cables, it's easy to see by view that it's not okay. But even that, there are some systems, analogic systems and digital systems, to understand every day, every hour, or what's the problem of the cable. The only thing that I must say is that it's not supposed to have this broke. It's not a broke, it's a rupture of the cable.
Tourists and local residents have been left shocked, with many visiting the site to pay tribute or take pictures of the out-of-service funicular. This is what some of the tourists had to say.
Accidents do happen. I mean, nobody plans it. And it could be anywhere. It could be New York, for that matter. That is, I'm not going to stop going to New York.
Segura, claro, hemos venido después del accidente nosotros. Nosotros no íbamos a subir tampoco en el funicular, pero estamos muy seguros. Llegamos ayer, muy bien. Yo creo que no. Eso pasa algunas veces. Supongo que tomarán medidas para que eso no vuelva a pasar y ya está. Si no, no se viajaría, ¿no? Claro.
I don't think it would be affected, no. But I mean, I think that a lot less people are going to take the vehicle that crashed, but I don't think that tourism will be affected.
Shifting our focus to the Middle East, in Gaza City, families are grieving after an Israeli airstrike hit tents sheltering displaced people near the Islamic University. Among the victims, children are also dead. Reda Afifi, one of the locals who lost several grandchildren, shared her heartache, saying that she is tired of this life and losing her children and grandchildren every day is unbearable. The strike has further intensified the suffering of the Palestinians, already enduring months of conflict and displacement.
بعتونا على الخارطة إنها غزة آمنة، بعيدة عن الخطر، بعيدة عن كل شيء. طب قعدنا في المنطقة الآمنة اللي حكى عنها الجانب الإسرائيلي، تم الذبح فيها، تم القتل فيها. إيش سوى الطفل هذا؟ إيش عمل الطفل هذا؟ عيلي كاملة كلها تنباد من غير أي شيء يذكر. ايش عملنا احنا للجانب الاسرائيلي؟ ايش سوينا؟
12:30 احنا نايمين في خيامنا، ما شفنا صواريخ بنزل على الناس. 3 عائلات نايمين الناس، طلعنا على صوت نجلة لقيت الخيمة محروقة حرق، الناس مفحمة فيها. هل الناس مفحمة فيها نتنياهو بتقول انت ما ضروش الاطفال، ما ضروش النساء، ما ضروش الرجال، هذا كيف انضربوا؟ نتكلم في حالنا، ما ضلش امهات في غزة، ما ضلش، امهات غزة كلهن حرقوا قلوبهن، يوم ندفن كل واحد، هذا بتحصل كلنا بنحصل على اولادنا. امشي امن بالله ما اخره معنا يطلع النهار، بطل محبه عليهم يطلع النهار، ما يطلعش النهار، بدناش يطلع النهار عشان ما تحصلش على اولادنا.
يا بدخيلك يا الله، والله زقنا عنا، احنا زقنا منها على الحياه كلها، لسه لو متنا كليتنا لسه اريح، يرضى علينا نو نتريح من الحياه، اما كل يوم نفقد بناتنا، كل يوم نفقد اولادنا هيك، هذا حرام بيصير فينا الشعب الفلسطيني. ايش عاملين احنا؟ طيب ليش طيب؟ ما دامها منطقة خضراء زي ما بيقولوا آمنة، ليش بيضربوا فيها؟ ليش يضربوا فيها؟ ليش يضربوا فيها المنطقة الخضراء؟ إيش نساوي إحنا؟ وين نروح يعني؟ وين نروح؟ لا معنا مصاري نطلع، ولا معنا إيش نطلع، ولا معنا حق كيلو طحين مش قادرين نجيبه يا الله، وين نروح إحنا؟
According to reports, the United States is sending 10 F-35 fighter jets to Puerto Rico as part of President Donald Trump's crackdown on drug cartels in the Caribbean. The advanced fighter jets will be added to an already bristling U.S. military presence in the southern Caribbean. The move comes amidst growing tensions in the region after the Pentagon reported 2 Venezuelan military planes buzzed a U.S. ship yesterday. The very same report states that the jets will target designated narco-terrorist groups operating in the southern Caribbean, with operations expected to start late next week. The development follows a U.S. strike in a vessel carrying what Trump called massive amounts of drugs, which killed 11 people. John Rosamundo on the telecast with me. John, if you could encapsulate for us this conflict that has been taking place, particularly between United States of America and Venezuela, where the Trump administration accuses the Venezuelan president of building drug cartels and smuggling drugs into American territory.
Well, over the past decade or so, the Maduro regime has been directly involved in human smuggling and pushing drugs into the U.S. Through the Darien Gap. I mean, we've seen spectacles of millions of illegals coming across. The president, when he was running for the office last year, talked about Tren de Aragua, which is a organized crime gang that is managed by Venezuelan intelligence. And President Trump said that he would solve the drug problem. So this show of force off the Venezuelan coast aims to do that. It reminds me a bit of 1989, where George H.W. Bush went and took out Manuel Noriega.
You know, the Venezuelan president, who has a $50 million bounty on his head that has been, of course, a crackdown by the American government, American administration, at this point of time claims that it is the Trump administration that is trying to destabilize the government, to bring about a sort of a coup d'etat, to remove Maduro from his position as the president. How do you react?
Well, let's put it this way. Maduro lost the election last year. He's not a legitimately elected leader. I mean, the real elected person who won the election went into exile. And the United States does not recognize this government as anything other than an organized crime outfit. So I think that the idea that there's going to be some sort of coup d'etat against him is ridiculous, because it already would have happened.
Right, absolutely. John, thank you very much for joining me and sharing your views. Well, this is all we have time for, and we'll keep bringing you more news and updates on the other side of this break. Stay tuned on NewsX World.